Hey, everybody. I'm sitting here behind the scenes doing all of this like fun stuff, thinking you guys can hear me. And I've just been talking for about 3 minutes without anything. I've got bumpers going up and all that other jazz. And well, here we go, everybody. I hope we're not freezing. I hope we're doing A-OK at least. I want to thank you guys for hanging in there. Sorry I was so frustrated. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It was so, It was so, And by the way, here's what you missed of what I did before I got on here. Really, literally nothing. Hello, everybody. Hey, Deb. Hey, Jazzy. Um, hey, Black Bell. How are you? More follow up this week from all the stuff that we're doing. Hey, Debbie. How are you? Hope you're doing well. I think you're in Florida. I'll be down in Florida in a couple of weeks here. Hey there, Paula. How are you? Bridget, good to see you. K-Uric, having fun, Lily. Lily from Long Island, right in your backyard. I see what you're saying. I see what you're doing. Forget about it. It's all good. I haven't had a good bagel since I visited. That's just the way it is, right? So, what is chaos? I mean, what is the literal chaos that we're facing right now? And it's real. It's real. Hello, Joanne. How are you? But what is chaos? What does chaos give us? What does chaos bring us? What does all of this stuff that seems to be bombarding us, and there's purpose with it, not good purpose, but you know, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, we're gonna find this, we're gonna find that, we're gonna get on ice agents, we're gonna get on this, and we're gonna show that, and we're gonna dive into this and find that, and we're gonna but ultimately it's about the corruption and the corruption of the Bidens, of the it's to knock you off your game. I owe Penny a little bit of an apology for I was just so done the other day. I always have such high hopes. And I even told her before we got out, I'm like, listen, I am just, don't go there, because I'm just like, it was almost like we have such a relationship that like we'll be like, can I touch your nerve so then I can see if it still works? And like that's not what I wanted, because I was really frustrated with the technology. I was frustrated with the world at large. And I was beginning to recognize and realize that, you know what? We're not a good place, but that doesn't mean that we're not in a good place. Oh, am I starting to differentiate? I sure am. I just totally spilled things all over the place. I don't care. My coffee has some grounds in it, which means even the coffee maker's human. Let that sink in for a second. Yeah, I got to reach out to her. We got to get grabbed onto. But listen, how do you deal with this? How do you energetically deal with chaos? And listen, I always like to show you the real. I always like to give you the authentic B, not the authenticity. Yeah, listen, Penny was graceful. Penny's a trained professional. One of the many values that I love about her. And being able to kind of like grapple with that, move through it, and it was just so much. Whatever. Doesn't even matter what it is. It was a moment. But how do we approach this high transactional, low frequency basis that's going on right now? Let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. It is high transaction, low frequency. High transaction, low frequency. The reason why customer service personnel tend to just grapple with that low frequency stuff all the time, they might be in a spiritual path, but they're going in. By the way, I'm kind of liking my internet. Did a little troubleshooting today. Did a little tweaking. Apparently, my modem likes to have its knobs touched. I'm just saying. I was gentle. Always am. Anyways. Seems like we might have made some corrections here. So let's call it spade to spade. We cannot currently wholesale fix our government with a meme. We cannot wholesale talk about a rebellion. We can't just march in the streets. And by the way, this is the unpresidential day, the day that we're supposed to go out and march and say, it's 22 degrees. I'll be dead by noon. I'm telling you. Our tauntaun is not going to make it in this weather. Just the way it is. But then we also recognize that the things that we do have control over, the safe haven, part of why I was so frustrated is because this is the one thing I think I actually do well enough to say this is what I do. I'm shifting from, and I talk about mediumship on the regular. And listen, I love having great groups. I love having fun. I love connecting the dots for people, wishing people well, bringing them to their own epiphanies. I mean, I'm a tour guide of the soul, right? That's what we do. That's whenever I'm able to put on that tour guide and say, "And your grandmother misses you," it's like winner, winner, chicken dinner, right? There's a belief system and a reality that people just start to pull apart when they're inundated. They pull back, right? And the value of it, right? The value of it is that when you start to lose your center, when you start to hear of all of these changes, you know, and just wait. If they haven't gotten to you, they will. Whether it's um, the 14th Amendment, whether it's Title IX, whether it's immigration, whether it's the Department of Education. I mean, really, Department of Education, which, by the way, in retrospect, is one of the smallest, departments in the entire U.S. government. Which, meanwhile, our Department of Defense is by far, we exceedingly spend more money on defense, more than all of our allies combined, just because we need to kind of say, like, hey, right? But let's talk about energy. Let's talk about the cracks that happen along the way. You have to accept that when you're dealing with megalomaniacs. And again, I'm not calling anybody a megalomaniac. I'm just saying at large. When you deal with megalomaniacs, what tends to happen is there'll be cracks in the armor. There'll be cracks in the armor because they'll have unintended consequences. In other words, they'll say something and then they'll be like, oh, that's not what I meant. Most people will walk it back. But that's not what we're dealing with right now. Now they just double down on it and just be like, yeah, well, I said, it'll be a wild time. Meet me down at the ellipse. And we don't necessarily connect the dots until in the moment when you're like, you don't see a direct line between you saying, let's rise up against our government. And then when people do it, you're like, oh, it's not what I said. We're dealing with an energy. And what are the characteristics of energy? Number one, it simply exists. When humans get in contact with energy, when we control energy, when we push energy, when we think that we're some sort of wizard, how do we convey our energy? Well, we convey it by force, right? With brute force, we're going to take over the world and we're going to go like, da, da, da! I'm just going to make you eat my strudel. And look at that. I'm the number one strudel seller in the world. I'm sorry, was that vaguely German? And in that, it has a particular energy. That energy knocks it out of the park. Make sure you eat the strudel. Then you have the energy of, that energy that might include a dance, and a dance with another energy. And that might be that, you have to coerce it, you have to massage it, you have to kind of work it into the right spot, right? And then with that, you might lose a little bit of like what you really wanted, but overall you kind of got what you needed out of it. Right. So there's the energy of the dance. And then you have the energy of the nuance. The energy of the nuance is where you take kind of almost a little bit of, this is where like passive aggressive fits in. Passive aggressive definitely does. But then it's also the person that just politely says something, that doesn't necessarily make it forceful or even too involved. They just kind of like, maybe, I don't know, take a vacation. And then you think to yourself, like, oh gosh, you know what? That was the last time I took a vacation. All of a sudden, that energetic thing of like, I haven't done any self-care in a while, really is part of the equation. And then you have the energy of fear, which, by the way, wraps around in the whole circle of energetic life. That is really kind of on the other side of just being forceful. But it's also the fear of being forceful, where it's like, it's not even so much that I'm afraid you're going to do it. It's that once that fear is gone, though, and you've done it, then you can deal with it. Because the anticipation, the part, it's like that anticipation of like knowing you've done something wrong and waiting for your parents to come home. It's that after cloud. It's that part where you go, this isn't going to be good. They're going to rip me a new one. This is going to hurt. I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose a privilege. I'm going to lose my TV. I'm going to lose something. Right? It's that part when like, your pitcher hit their best player and you're the best player getting up to bat. It happened once. And then you're going to get drilled. You just know it. It's that anticipation where you're like, the ball's going to come in. I don't want to do anything. It's the flinch, right? The first 27 days of the Trump administration has been the make you flip. And then one thing happens, another thing happens, and then you get frustrated. You start slamming things. And then you're like, but Brandon, he's doing it. He is, but he knows full well he can't get away with 80% of the crap that he's pulled. He's already had injunctions. He's already had whatever. He is a loosely based term, but it's also the part of it where that was the goal. The goal was to flood the zone, bazooka style or whatever Bannon said. And we are less than 2% of the way through his administration. 2%. It's funny. I posted something on Facebook about Julianne Moore's book being banned. And I went on a crusade to say, I'm going to make sure I kind of know what I'm talking about. I've been called out. And sometimes I shoot the gun a little too quick. Shoot first, ask questions later. And it's a lot of work to do research to come out here and speak intelligently about things sometimes, because there's a lot of moving parts. You can't always rely on sources and whatever. But I felt like I had done my due diligence, and I'm just like, we're seeing a president that basically talks about how, and you can divide his actions into three things, really. The first one is, how can he annoy the most amount of people as quickly as he can? I'm going to pick a fight with Canada. I'm going to pick a fight with Panama. I'm going to pick a fight with this one and that one and blah, blah, blah. Gaza, that's going to be a land deal. And by the way, he does them all in like one breath. He sounds like the OCD ADHD kid that, basically turns around and goes like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be a producer, and I'm going to be a rock star, and I'm going to be an actor and an actress, and I'm going to be an author. And then I'm going to be a president for a while. And then I'm going to be a mayor and a governor. And then I'm also going to be, I'm a prince, really. And then I'm going to be able to, and then my song's going to be like number one. And then my number one hit is going to be like in everybody's ear. And then I'm going to be like a billion trillionaire. And then I'm going to be like, oh, okay, Donnie. Oh, got it. Oh, by the way, there's some white showing. You might want to hit some orange on that. Isn't that insane? Somebody that's so anti-DEI is orange. Can we just let that shit sink in for a second? But then we get ourselves into a position where we're inundated. And what this presidency is doing is, number one, how many people can we annoy? Number two, how many asses can we kiss? Who do we owe? And number three, how do we get people in places to do things that we want them to do? It's all about the manipulation. It's all about the energetic value of either intimidation, fear, nuances, or whatever. And by the way, they are using those levels of energy on each and every one of us. When you look at different circumstances, they're like, they called up Google and they were basically like, listen, you need to change. You need to be on the right side of history of this. You need to change Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America. I'm sorry, what? And then Google had two choices. They could either be with them or against them. And by the way, I don't blame Google for not fighting this. It's kind of like, what the fuck? Like, whatever. You're going to make a declaration. You're going to make it sound all official. When you log on in the United States, that's the Gulf of America. And by the way, Mexico is kind of like I'm sorry, what? So the energy of that was direct, right? There's the direct part of it, but then you had the ancillary parts of the energy, which is that it's mildly, if not blatantly, racist and superiority complex and imperialistic. And we're gonna basically say in the Gulf of America, it just sounds better than Gulf of Mexico. I think Donald Trump once quoted, the reason why I chose West Palm Beach was because it wasn't in the Gulf of Mexico. Actually, the place that he took over was actually, look up the history of Mar-a-Lago. If you want to laugh about how he grifted the United States, it's insane. You know what he did? You want to talk about this guy's a pro at energy manipulation. He's been doing it forever. Mar-a-Lago was originally supposed to be a Camp David style place. Truly, it was generally supposed to be like hey, we want to be able to meet with our South American compatriots, whether they're in Central America, whether they're in South America, whether it's maybe talking to Cuban, relations. It was actually designed for that. It was designed by someone who left it to the Florida government for the United States government. And Donald Trump tried to buy it and basically undercut them. So what Donald Trump did, since he didn't get his way, he bought up all the property around it and basically slumlorded it. He basically drove the price down to a point where they were finally just like, this is worth like only $20 million when it used to be worth 200. Buys it for $20 million. All of a sudden does all of the sprucing up to all of the, and by the way, none of this is surprising any of you. And it's like, well, if we knew that, maybe we wouldn't have voted for him. We kind of knew a lot of this stuff all the way. He bullied everybody into selling him that property so he could say he won. And again, I'm done talking about him as a human. He's not. He doesn't even represent my species, guys. It's just how I look at it. He's not a man. He's not an American. And he's certainly not somebody that cares or gives a shit about others. He and I could not be any more polar opposite than what we are. We just can't be, right? The ironic thing is that our rising sign is only a few degrees off from one another. It's crazy. It's just, you can be a good person if you want to be. And listen, do I make mistakes? Do I have tendencies? I see a little bit of that sometimes. But at the same time, I also have that thing in my brain that goes, nah, I probably shouldn't do it this way. I should probably learn from that mistake. He doesn't have that, guys. So he works this energetic value all the time, right? And what are we to do? Sit back, relax, put your tray in an upright position, and here's to 4 years. Is nuance going to work with him? Oh, we shall not speak his name. We will call him the 45 or the 47. Sort of, maybe, possibly. Or do we deal with things directly? I mean, what does he want from us? I want to actually talk to you about a couple of things that are going on right now, and I'm gonna break down the energies of them. And let me tell you something. The thing that megalomaniacs always have is an Achilles heel. And that Achilles heel for me, I think, in this situation for Trump is that he's going to have people that are going to be they're not good agents. They're not agents of change. They're not Agent Orange. There's going to be something in it for them. But then when that runs out or he pulls out the deal, I mean, ask Rudy Giuliani how his partnership with Trump has gone. Like he was doing his bidding. And of course, Trump turns around and is like, Rudy, you shouldn't have said those things. You're just not a good lawyer. And meanwhile, he's like, but I was drinking Trump vodka all the time. You do realize that in his previous term, when he was just outside of being the mayor, when Trump said, I don't have any more, I'm not paying you for this. And then Rudy said, well, you just bellied up Trump vodka. Why don't you give me those cases? You do know that he got paid in Trump vodka at one point. Like, okay, new economy coming in, right? Who's at the Four Seasons, landscaping. We see it in plain sight that what's going on here is an Ocean's 11 style heist, right? You've got Donald Trump, where everybody's like, shiny stuff, Gulf of America. And then you have Elon Musk. My guys will get it. $3.8 million a day has been reported. I don't know if it's true. That's why I'm saying is reported. I don't know. I don't know if I'm supposed to believe it, not believe it, research it. I don't have the fucking time. I'm too busy saving the world. But you have Elon Musk, being the operative that goes in and controls the data, the breach, the securities, breaks it all down. Then you have Kristi Noem going, hey, I'm going to go out and we're going to ice everybody. By the way, what was the statistic? I just had it up here. Of the 1,400 people that they have taken into custody or otherwise arrested, a little over 1,000 of them had green cards. So they were actually legal, but they were arrested because they were brown. Oh, and by the way, the other ones that were not there legally, quote unquote legally, didn't have their green card with them, didn't have proper documentation. Not to say whether they were legal or not legal yet, but literally no one that they have arrested so far have been a serious felon, criminal, otherwise. You know how we know this? Real criminals don't flip fucking burgers, Kristi Noem. However, you're raiding restaurants and taco trucks and, other places that are high immigrant laden workplaces because, low hanging fruit, right? Got to get some wins, right, Kristi? Can't keep shooting all the dogs in the back of the head, right? And then you've got the likes of Vivek Ramaswamy going, we are going to be the most cohesive operating, blah, blah, blah. It's like he's giving a speech in his bedroom when he's 12, right? Meanwhile, they're not cleaning up any of the hate rhetoric. At no time did Elon Musk say, hey, you know what? That was a bad look for me. I'm still trying to control. If he just said, if these inhuman people that act inhuman just acted human for 30 seconds, the rest of us might say, I'm not buying it, but good try. If Elon Musk is like, that was calling from my heart. Maybe use both fucking hands instead of a one-arm salute. Just a thought. And by the way, you don't get to say that you're neurospicy all of a sudden. I have a 13th kid in hiding. And I don't disparage you for that. Good for you. Plant your seeds where other fields have been plowed. I don't care. Have a great day with that. It's your business. But this is the guy. That's the guy. That's the guy that Trump went, you know what I could do? No, it's about money, guys. It's always about money. Always about money. And then you have other working parts of you got Pete Hetzig. That's just, we're going to talk about him in a second because he got called out. He got called the fuck out. You got Linda McMahon. That's not. Just the name doesn't sound qualified to run the state. The Department of Education. Then you have Tulsi Gabbard, who's kind of like a secret in that just has that information on whoever, who has serious ties to not only Russian oligarchs, but Putin specifically. And she got in on a line item vote. Every single one of these people I got in on a line item vote. And I'm also done with Democrats standing around going, oh gosh, we've just got to win. We've got to win. Guys, they're using a different playbook. The Constitution's dead. We don't have that. We don't have freedom of speech either because, well, quite frankly, if you can ban a book about freckles, about a little girl that recognizes that her freckles actually are what make her unique and makes them kind of like it normalizes the idea that difference is good and can see the difference in other people and accept them for who they are, is now labeled DEI and can no longer be in public libraries. I'm sorry, Richard Scarry on line 1, douchebags. Like, what on earth are we doing here? That's what the office of the president is concerned with? I'm going to pull this number out of my ass. I don't know if it's true, but there's close to 2 million people that have died in Ukraine since the war started. I remember seeing something when it passed over 1 million and whatever. Or displaced. Maybe it was killed or displaced. I can't remember what it is, so please forgive me. But we literally have a country of 20 million people, 25 million people that have been under war. And then we villainize the fact that we send them aid, and then we get rid of the organization that gives them aid. And then you have people saying, you don't understand the corruption. This needs to be undone. There are people on Social Security that are 145 years old that are still getting a check. I'd like to see their names because I don't believe anything that they're saying. And by the way, I think those people should be held accountable and pay back the money. I don't think anybody in a reasonable sense of the term thinks that any of that is okay. And by the way, the one or two that you get over 140 years or the 5 or 6 in between 120 and 140 and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, these are astronomically low numbers based on what you should be focusing in on, which is probably the reason why so many other administrations just kind of, they were like, listen, we're talking about maybe 5 dozen people. We're talking about 100 people that are grifting this because we're still paying it. We have a system in place. Auditors, go do your job. By the way, when you do auditing, the first thing that you do is you send in auditors, not programmers. You actually assess the problem, figure out its worth, and then create solutions around it. Then send in the programmers and say, this is a solution that you're bringing. But we don't, it's easier to say, we've all lived this. It's easier to say I'm sorry than to ask for permission. Donald Trump is 100% not asking permission. The problem for me is that Donald Trump has never said, I'm sorry. Do you get it yet? It's not what he's doing. It's how he's doing it. And he doesn't have the mechanism to say, oh, is that me? He doesn't have his Urkel moment. Did I do that? No. He rips apart these DEI programs because he's acting like, and who he's appealing to energetically are the arrogant, sycophantic white guys that are like, I didn't get the job, and why they get whatever, and blah, blah, blah. The unintended consequences that come out of this type of energy manifestation is astronomically bad. The World News reported on Friday that there were over $80 million pulled in aid to farmers. Not a DEI program in Ireland, not foodstuffs that Al-Qaeda orphans might have eaten, not gunnery stuff to Ukraine, none of that. U.S. farmers. Hands across America. Remember that? It is estimated that by June 2025, 40% of U.S. farmers were going to default starting now on their mortgages, on their loans, because they are heavily subsidized. I don't know if any of you have ever been on WIC. I don't know if any of you have ever been on subsidies before, right? So being a foster parent, those are transferable to the children. And here I'm like, I have means. I don't need this. And then the counselor, the coach counselor, whoever it was, basically said to us, listen, do us a favor and actually still get it. Use it for two reasons. One, it will be comfort for them because there will be a consistency for them. It's like, okay. Number two, it also helps the system because then we can still assess that we still need to have this constant need. And you would get an abundance of stuff. You would get a bunch of bread. You get a bunch of milk. Milk was a huge thing. You could get as much milk as you wanted. And you get cheese, sometimes government cheese. And then they moved away from that altogether, which, by the way, is there anything better than a good government cheese and macaroni and cheese? Am I wrong? Am I wrong? It's yellow, but that just means they care. So anyways, having this, part of me kind of had to swallow some pride because I'm just like, I can take care of these kids. Like, I'm doing this, right? And then on the other side of it, they were like, no, if you buy this, then it gets attached to them. Then it shows that they still have the benefit. Some audit's going to see it someday down the road and say like, hey, this is good. This is going to places that we needed it to. It makes the numbers not only look good, but also you could use it as well. And they weren't wrong. It actually helped out with the formula stuff when they were babies. Like I never would have gone through that had I not said, I'm going to become a foster parent and I'm going to do adoption. Never. I just would have never known that world. All of that, the cheese, the milk, the bread, the grains, the baby food, all of it came from Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Texas, Oklahoma, Illinois, Indiana. Like, it came from the breadbasket, guys. It came from within. We helped ourselves. So when they sit there and they say, I'm tired of taking care of Ukraine, I'm tired of taking care of this, that, and the other thing, it was taking care of ourselves. Because systematically, somebody along the lines said, we should really help ourselves before we help others. We should have the mass drop down, put it down ourselves. And by the way, $80 million of aid internally. What's the energy of turning your back on others? I thought up a bunch of snarky things to say, like, oh, it's President Day. I really hope and goes and takes in maybe a play or a theater at the Kennedy Center or the Lincoln Center. There's so much ties to those guys. But listen, I want to give you guys a heads up. You guys know I'm doing a special right now. Some of you know that. Oh, I see somebody just went ahead and did this. Somebody saw it on my website. So if you type in the word energy, you can get 50 smackaroonies off. A reading. $50 off, kids. I'm doing what I can for the economy. Every year I do a special on my birthday, give or take a couple of weeks. And this year I just wanted to kind of just put it out there, do it that way, rock and roll. I've already had a bunch of you sign up. That's good. And by the way, you have to sign up during this time. It's not whether or not you can get in during this time because it's near impossible. But I appreciate it. I appreciate that kind of support. And I also have, and I'm going to go ahead and be self-grandizing here. Oh, look at this. I've got an online message circle. By the way, you can shade in a little more gray here. Let the hair grow a little bit. The beard's kind of out. I'll get it trimmed. Don't worry. Got a photo shoot coming up. Going to look good. Going to look good for that. I can't go down to Florida and look homeless. They won't let me come back. But I've got Florida dates out there. I'm down in Punta Gorda. I'm also up in a place called Palm Harbor, which is just outside of Clearwater. You can't wait to connect with you guys. Let's rock and roll that. It's kind of fun. But listen, I want to also give you guys a heads up. How many of you guys are into crystals? Come on, talk to me here. Talk to me here for a second. Talk to me here for a second. How many crystals you got right in front of you? Go ahead. Take a look. You got like 1,400 of them, right? You got them all around you. You got them under your mattress. You got them next to your bed. You got them in your pockets. You got them in that little pocket. You know that thing in the denim thing in the jeans where you put them in there? And you put them in there. All right, guys, listen. How many of you know what you're doing with it? I'm seeing a lot of me's. I'm seeing a lot of I ams. More than I can count. Well, that's about right. Well, listen, I want to give you guys a heads up. Known Sandy for a long time. She's taught a lot of people through the center. She has evolved into doing this work online. By the way, here's the thing. You're going to snapshot it. You're going to take a look at it. You're going to do all that fun stuff with it. And then you're going to recognize and realize that she's a really good teacher. She's been at this for a while. She has a crystal healer certification class coming up. It starts on March the 3rd. You're going to sign up by sending her an email. If you have questions, you're going to send her an email. It is a relatively inexpensive class. If you compare it to all the things out there, it's great. It's a great price, and she knows her stuff. She's been teaching it here for a while. This is a certification level class. So you get a little certificate there at the end. You can say, look at this, I know my stuff. But more importantly, you're going to be able to answer and identify a lot of these crystals that you have all around you. You probably can't even name half of them. I know I can't. So people are like, Brandon, do you take the class? No, I didn't take the class. I just have Sandy on speed dial. By the way, crystalsforthejourney@gmail.com. Send her a quick email and just say, hey, I want to know more. Hey, I want to sign up. Can we set up a time and talk about this, that sort of thing? She keeps her classes small, so then she can spend time with each person. Any questions? Do tell. I can't wait for you guys to sign up on this. And hey, yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, Crystal W. We don't use that name. Anyways, so sign up for that class today. It starts a week from Monday. 2 weeks from Monday. Is it 2 weeks from Monday? What day is today? March 3rd. Sign up for it. Monday nights. It's a handful of nights there every Monday. Starts on Monday, stays on Monday all the way through till the end of it. And it gives you an opportunity to really understand what healing crystals can do for you. So make sure you sign up. crystalforthejourney@gmail.com. All right, guys. So listen, I want to talk about some of the world events here. I already showed you a little sneak peek there. So we have this like world classic thing. Remember, I don't know. We're going on, gosh, what is this? 45 years? 45 years. Thank you, guys. Yeah, you know what? I'll put it right here. I see somebody asking this. It is crystals for the journey at gmail.com. Excuse my fingers. If you type in crystals for the journey on any one of the search engines and put Sandy's name near it, it'll pop up. You'll get her. You'll get her Facebook page. You'll get all sorts of stuff that she's got out there. So do enjoy that. So remember 45 years ago, about this time, I think like 3 days ago, where we had the Olympics, right? And do you remember do you believe in miracles? First of all, Al Michaels still with us. And he was 40 when that happened. So he's like 85 years old. Like he's all sorts of stuff, right? And we got excited because we were playing against otherwise professionals, right? We were able to put our foot into it and say, we're going to make them play our game. Herb Brooks, great coach, passed away before the movie came out, but at least he got his gold medal, and he literally said, we're going to change the games. We're going to bring the game to him. They're so used to using intimidation. They're so used to using their what have you, that to intimidate everybody that they play, that the game's over before they even hit the ice. They might hang with them for a little bit, but then they kind of like force it down their throat. Seems like we should deal with that now. Well, in Montreal over the weekend, we had a big kind of, ice classic four, the big four. I wish I was talking about Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer. But instead, what we're talking about is hockey. We're talking about the United States. We're talking about Canada. We're talking about Sweden and Finland. So in Montreal, they play the American United States national anthem. Then when the puck drops, there were 3 fights in the first period. Because the energy of we're number one translates to we're just going to beat them up. Why were they beating them up? Because they were booed. The national anthem was booed. And instead of respecting their perspective, we feel like we have some sort of small dick policy every time we travel somewhere else, and we have to somehow show them who's number one. Now, granted, they won the game 3-1. And granted, they moved on in whatever standings it is that they needed. But I'm going to be honest here. If you think that us beating up a bunch of Canadians in hockey is going to make us somehow better because they don't like our policy, they booed us and was disrespectful. Our president basically said we're going to ruin your sovereignty because, 51st state. Is there anything more disrespectful from that? And they were still gracious to host us. They were still gracious enough to say, we are going to kill you with kindness. Now, the Canadians lost that game. But let's have a brutally honest conversation about how energy affects this. The United States players basically acted like a bunch of children, period. End of conversation. Let's not kid ourselves. And I'm all for standing up for ourselves. If they had had one fight, I would have said, okay, I get it. Point taken. You buzz my tower, I'm going to buzz yours. Got it. I get sports. I coach it. I would have been cutesy about it. And you know what I would have done? I would have won the game and said, here's the flag. Go dance around it. Hey, we're still Americans. We're still in this together. Fine, whatever. And would that have been better? I don't think so. But I wouldn't have chosen violence. We've got enough of that in the world. We certainly don't need it on an ice hockey rink. However, it turned into an all-out fisticuffs. What did we get out of that? Like, honestly, what came of that? Well, we won the game. We intimidated them. We big-dicked them. Blah, blah, blah. I am going to put all of my money. And by the way, what is our healthy acceptance of gambling now? Like, dude, we gamble on everything. Everything. Everything we can. Hold on a second. I'm going to play around with this one. How's that one? That's not good. We'll go back to this. And then we have Elon Musk taking his son to work day. You're not the real president. You're not the real president. By the way, every megalomaniac has a downfall, and that is sometimes the truth of a child. This debacle was insane. And to come to find out that Elon Musk's, as a contractor to the United States government, is currently making $3.8 million a day. Now, he has employees hackers to pay. He has all of those things. But let's look at the context of this. In a very informal, not very official way, he's like, I'm going to hang out. Well, I'm going to hang out in the boss's office. And, I'm going to bring my kid to work. And you could tell he just wanted to just haul off on him, right? Shut up, you're not the real president. I mean, listen, call X whatever it is that you want to do. He renamed everything, whatever. And is he a shield of some kind? Maybe. But it's pretty clear that this bromance is toxic. Toxic. Now, you can speculate what gets to the bottom of it. It's speculation, it's news sourcing, it's misdirection, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to tell you what I think. I think Donald Trump gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. And that is, I'll give you unlimited whatever it is that you need. You just got to make sure that I win the election. And then we'll come up with some sort of scheme for you to dive in and find all these problems. And listen, they are finding problems. Let's keep it honest. They're finding out some misappropriated money that should have been cleaned up along the way. They are. But the vast majority of it are things that you and I voted on because our district and representatives voted on for them in a budget to be able to be allocated and appropriated. And the fact that you don't like U.S. aid, or the fact that there are names that are attached to it because it was some sort of effort. By the way, every single celebrity that gets attached to that, you know who else is on that list of they're like, hey, so and Bono got paid and this one got paid. You know who else got paid was Louis Black. You think Louis Black is an operative for the U.S. government? He's not even the closest thing to the fact. I love Louis Black. It's just sheer anger. I saw his name on that, and the first thing that came to my mind, and I knew exactly what it was, he was paid to go do USO work overseas for troops. They happened to funnel the coverage and protection for him through USAID because it's a clearinghouse. It is a non-political entity. It's kind of like saying your checkbook is Democrat or Republican. It's not. It is just the allocation of the funds so then they get to where they are. So they have a tracking device that you can monitor and audit and redirect and all that stuff. Oh, but we found that we were paying a DEI cultural center. You know, they're upset that they paid money. By the way, in Ireland, that was ravaged by some stuff beyond us. Those of you that don't understand the division between Ireland and Northern Ireland, we don't have time right now. But in a nutshell, in good faith and goodwill and some sort of political allegory, we said, hey, listen, we're gonna give you a little bit of money in order to do that. Well, that building got rehabbed, redone, whatever. And then they had a play, which, by the way, I have never attended a play that was not DEI. And by the way, was so non-DEI. The only problem is that the people that are qualified to play gay, lesbian, trans people are gay, lesbian, and trans people. I don't know. I don't know. So they put a label on it and then turn around and call it a bad thing. Meanwhile, I have never seen, if you've ever seen, Q on Broadway, those actors aren't straight, guys. Like, that's not a DEI hire. They understand the traumatic parts of having friends that die of AIDS because they have friends that have died with AIDS. Like, that's not DEI. That's actually great casting. The DEI idea, and by the way, this goes hand in hand with this horse shit that's up on the screen, is the idea that there's qualified people running the show. He's not even white. Oh, and by the way, Elon Musk wasn't born here, guys. Elon Musk grew up in South Africa. And every single time Donald Trump talks about making America great again, recognize what he's talking. He talked about it. He said it was in the late 1800s. And he literally said between 1865 and 1930. That's when America was its greatest. And what he was actually talking about was unions weren't in existence. We were no longer, we didn't have slavery. We had apartheid. Make no mistake. The United States had a phase of apartheid between 1865 and 1963. That was the United States time of apartheid. Make America great again when we could kind of passively be racist. That's really what he's saying. Also recognize during that time that not only did we not have rules and regulations, we also had World Bank control coming into effect. Hoover signed it in. McKinley signed it in. There were all sorts of, by the way, if you're not a historian, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about. But McKinley actually ruined the world-based economy because he actually said the World Bank was a good idea. The Federal Reserve should be the way that we work with that. As soon as a dollar is printed, we're already losing money because we have to pay interest on that. And Donald Trump wants to do away with the penny. And by the way, he can talk about the penny being 1 cent. Uno centavo, for those of you that speak the language. And you're like, but it costs 10 cents to make. Well, I don't know if you know this or not there, Donald. You use the penny more than once, Scrooge McDuck. You don't just put it in a fucking safe. You actually use it more than once. Oh, by the way, because of naturalization laws and getting rid of the 14th Amendment, which, by the way, Trump said it was ingratiated in the United States, the 14th Amendment, so that then children of slaves could become citizens. He didn't say anything about letting them vote. Citizens equals servitude, right? If Donald Trump revoked the 14th Amendment, Elon Musk would be deported because he'd have no business in the United States. And oh, by the way, there's things that you can get away with. And Rivik Swami there, we'll just call him Swami from here on in. It was basically like, oh no, we need really good top Asian, Indian programmers. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people of value. And the only value that we have is how can we fit them into the cog. It's only a matter of time before they get to you to say, how do you fit in our cog? You guys do know that. Elon Musk would be deported. His son would be deported. Melania and Barron would be on the chopping block. Oh, and so would Eric Jr. So would Don Jr. So would Ivanka. If you really read the fine print, it's fantastic. And it's funny, I watch people talk about how the United States has to hold people with abrupt and chaotic accountability. And all I've simply said is, yeah, you're right. Trump should really face the music. Well, it's not Trump. It's so much bigger than him. Start with the leader. What is good leadership? We don't have it. We don't even know what it is. Been lying since Clinton, everybody. It started before then. Are you ready to rumble? Because the Department of Education is going to be run by Linda McMahon, who, by the way, knows as much about EIPs as she does about the DAT coming down. Oh, yeah. I just get excited every single time I see a Linda McMahon come up on the stage and tell me that I'm no good and I'm worthy. Well, I'm the cream of the crop, I tell you. I've been to the top of the mountain. I can Macho Man Savage all day long. This is your Department of Education leader. The one that's slapping her daughter in the middle of a ring to the cheers. I'm sorry, or at least the apathy. Look at the crowd in the back. They don't give two shits. By the way, this is the one time that I really think that women should not participate in men's sports. Oh, yeah. By the way, she rolled out her plan to basically disembowel the Department of Education in the matter of 2 years. And what they were looking to do is basically defund it. It's the only real function that the state education department has, or the federal Department of State Education has. And essentially what they're trying to do is to privatize and basically say, you don't have a basic right to an education here. because it's just a headache. There's too many problems. There's too many circumstances, too many check boxes on an EIP. Nope. You either need to pay somebody through the nose for it, or you need to just kind of go through the trade union school that we need you to go to. And by the way, they're gonna hijack the word union in the next 2 months. They're gonna talk about a federal union, and you're gonna go, what? Well, he's so anti-union. Well, if he's so anti-union, why did he create the federal union? It's like saying the Federal Reserve is a government entity. It's not. It's a private entity. Serving the Rothschilds, serving all the people that make the money off of our grift. Right? By the way, with all of the cuts that Doge has made, all of the 42 or 48,000 federal employees that are going to leave early and retire early, all of the cuts and basically come to work or get fired or blah, 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 all of those things. Do you know what the return is on this? The true return on this? Our single biggest out-of-pocket expense, I'm going to break screen here. Our single biggest out-of-pocket expense in the United States is not the Department of Education. It is not Social Security. It is actually self-funded. It is not a dialogue or a diatribe about who we help and foreign aid or even Department of Defense, which is by far our biggest expenditure in terms of departments. The absolute biggest expenditure in the United States for its citizens is the interest that we pay and the money that we borrowed against ourselves. It's not wasteful spending. And by the way, again, I'm with you guys. Let's not waste money. I mean, the little libertarian in me that still sits on my shoulder from time to time saying, you can be judicious and have accountability in the accounting department. It's interest. And when they broke it all down and they started to see what he was doing with Doge, they were trying to make the argument of how much he's really kind of clawing things back. Oh, and by the way, anytime you hear the word clawback in the federal government, just go ahead and think to yourself, broken treaty. Because how those things work is that, let's just say a city has an overrun population of immigrants and homeless people, and they're trying to figure out a way to do it. And the federal government turns around and says, yeah, we're going to go ahead and help you out there. Go ahead and start putting people up, write the check. I'm more than, let's just like kind of catch up. We've got to get it funded. We've got to get things through, so forth and so on. And then it gets approved because our senators, our representatives go there, vote on it, convince the other senators that this is a worthy cause, that the whole and utilitarian is necessary for our district, for our state, for our local government. That's how the government basically works, right? All of that money in U.S. aid was approved by Congress in one way or another. That is the part, that is the woefully illegal act that they're providing. But regardless, now what you're basically saying is, I'm sorry, New York, remember how we said we were going to pay for that? It's wasteful now. And by the way, it's not determined by the other 100 people that decided it before, or the 349 that decided it before. No, it's one fucking guy from South Africa who grew up in apartheid that decides who he likes and who he doesn't like and calls it waste when you question him. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that brutal honesty? Well, get used to it, Linda McMahon. Because what are you going to do? Nah, I don't like Hulk. Douchebag. Sorry, Terry. Should have gotten those implants. Those of you that get that joke, we can be friends. But let us not forget who we do choose to put in charge. This is Pete Hegseth, who sat in front of Congress, the panel for the armed services, and said, if I am put into office, I'll quit drinking. This is another further energetic bashing of our intelligence and trauma bonding that was trying to go on. We all know somebody that's drank too much and has had to figure it out. We subtly, somewhere in the middle of all of that, if they haven't directly heard us or gone on for a long time, we're actually kind of pulling for them, right? Pete Hetzig is sick. And this isn't about politics. I'm a recovery coach. I also read people for a living. There was some argument whether it was vodka or gin. But regardless, there is Keith Edwards. I want to give a shout out to him, whose channel is pretty strong. He's a recovering addict. And he talked in incredible honesty. I would highly encourage you guys to go look him up, Pete Hetzig, with Keith Edwards. Keith does a great job. Great job. And he basically talks about, he actually shows some other footage, like when he was in the confirmation hearing, how he drank water and then how he sipped this. He's like, yeah, he lets it sit on the palate for a second before he swallows, which is what alcoholics do. Because they love that flavor, that sting on their tongue, on their lips, and their breath. It hurts them for a second. It's part of what they like, right? If Donald Trump really gave a shit about people, he would have made sure that Rudy Giuliani was never in front of people ever again, and he would have protected him and made sure he got help. Maybe he wouldn't have made mistakes that he said about 2 election workers in Atlanta. And more importantly, maybe he'd still have a relationship with his son and not have to steal things from the federal government in order to keep heirlooms in his family. Maybe he could have possibly saved his marriage, but not. I don't know. Instead, he's using Pete Hetzig as a ploy, as a plot. And here's Donald Trump talking about how he never drinks because he never, he's seen the evils of it. And meanwhile, he doesn't know enough to give this guy help. But he's going to use him because he's got 2 Bronze Stars. Because he was a mouthpiece for Fox on the weekend. How? You can't make up these characters, guys. There's nowhere does this scream qualification. Now, if Pete Hetzig had gone and worked for the Defense Department in some other capacity, in a liaison for some foreign front lines or whatever, like, I get it. I'd be like, okay, come on, Pete, pull it together. But I'm going to put him in front of the spotlight where he can't hide it. That congressional panel has to get called out on this. I don't even care about the politics anymore. Pete Hetzig is broken. And he's being rebroken because he thinks he's serving a master of, like, see, I made it. I'm the Department of Defense's. I'm in charge. Yeah, I'm in charge. I'm in charge. Vodka. I'm in charge. Gin. On top of the incredibly explosive conversation that he could have behind the scenes, sitting there as some sort of drunk monkey and saying the wrong things in a very delicate, otherwise volatile situation, and then thinking that when the puck drops, he's just going to beat the shit out of him because that's what he's going towards, because that's his track record. His abuse of women, his abuse of other people. The guy has more red flags than a carnival. We put him in charge of something. The biggest budgetary spend aside from our inflationary interest that we pay every day. Think about it, guys. This one has the smallest budget and she's beating up girls. This one's throwing back drinks going, I don't drink anymore. Well, everybody likes a nip every now and again. But wait, there's more. This is the thing that should scare the living shit out of every single person and give you hope at the same time. I know you guys tune in for the hope. Here it is. I had gotten flack for Liz Cheney, my support of Liz Cheney. I don't necessarily appreciate all of her politics, but I agreed with her on several things, up to and including. And listen, sometimes you split the hairs on well, the idea that we need limitations or we have to include this and not that and make other people happy. I get it. Liz Cheney was a negotiator, and she was definitely conservative with that negotiation. And by the way, she was a mid-level conservative. She wasn't just right of center. She also wasn't extreme. And she suddenly looked left of center with all of this nonsense since 2016. And by the way, she was 100% right. All she wanted to do was bring Trump to trial and say, please defend yourself or not. But stand on your own two merits. But instead it was gaslighting. It was misdirection. It's going to be wild. It's going to be whatever. Cassidy Hutchinson testified all of the nonsense that went down that day. People called her a liar and disparaging things that you would call women. Because, she's a rising star at 26. She didn't sleep with anybody, and therefore she's a slut. Perfect bro logic. Well, now the circle of life comes forward. Eric Adams is the mayor of New York. Eric Adams had discussions with the Turkish government to fund and otherwise present solutions in New York City to build and finance projects. Eric Adams took money from that. What Eric Adams did isn't unusual or really all that surprising. But when the gentleman beneath him, Bove, is currently the second highest ranking Solicitor General in the country right now, got involved and basically said, district attorneys, we really should drop this case because of the sensitivity of what's going on. Now, Pam Bondi, the blonde bombshell in the middle, wonder how she got the job. Talk about DEI. What's your cup size? Anyways, Pam Bondi shows up, who is the highest ranking legal person in this country, stated after she took office and got her congressional approval, we will not parlay to disruption to anyone that is creating fraud, that is not upholding the Constitution in the highest order. Her words. And then to the left, the very conservative, recently appointed by Donald Trump of the 7th District, District Attorney Sassoon, love that name, is a rising star. She's part of the Federalist Foundation. Listen, she praised Brett Kavanaugh's placement. She praised and worked for Scalise. The one on the left might make your skin crawl in her resume, but hang on. We're in the age of the anti-hero. We truly are. Just want to look up one quick thing for my own edification. By the way, Eric Adams is the 110th New York City mayor. By the way, Eric Adams is a Democrat. And when Bova walked in to the district attorney's office, he rallied all of them up. By the way, Pam Bondi was involved too. Rallied up all of the attorneys. And they basically said, everybody that worked in the district attorney's office, and basically said, which one of you are going to drop the charges against Eric Adams? Squid Games, everybody. Who's going to rat who? Miss Sassoon, who has her entire career ahead of her. said, I'm going to take the weekend. I'm going to be a leader here. And in a public announcement, she quoted Pam Bondi when she took the oath of office. She cited her own oath of office, not only to the bar administration, but then also to her oath of the position that she just took. She pointed out the coercion. She pointed out the manipulation. She basically talked about the quid pro quo that they were asking them to do instead of enforcing the law. Without fear or favor, she said, Eric Adams has enough to be investigated, indicted, and otherwise prosecuted. However, the Attorney General, Bondi, Trump agent Bova, all come into New York City's office to try and exonerate Eric Adams, Democrat, by the way. By the way, the other three people on here, staunch Republicans. They have all been fed by Trump. All of them. All of them. Stroked and finished, everybody. Is Miss Sassoon the last standing speck of anything here? By the way, she's also 8 months pregnant. She could also turn around and say, well, if they don't get me to do it, they'll do somebody else. Instead, she applied her own integrity and basically said, that's not okay. What you're doing is not okay. And I will not be that agent of chaos. What they're afraid they might find is that Donald Trump is directly related to that Turkish deal. Which is ironic because he doesn't give a shit and show up for court dates anyways. We're going to look back, and in 2021, when we had him on the hook, we let him get away. By the way, Sassoon is that New York district attorney. Okay? You guys do understand that how this is operating is that they're starting to eat themselves. So where do we go from here energetically? Are we just to kind of sit around and hope? Yeah, by the way, 3/4 of the office resigned and basically said, screw you. Which, by the way, was part of their goal anyways. Now they'll replace them with real people that'll drop the case. What are the energies here? Right? Being a brute. You know, nuances, blah, 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 all of this stuff. He's trying to manipulate energy everywhere he goes. Now, the part we can do is make sure he doesn't manipulate yours. When it gets to be too much, go ahead and turn off the TV. We can't sustain 4 years of this behavior. We just can't. Logic tells us that anyways. And a lot of people say that we couldn't deal with the first 4 years. I remember when Trump beat Hillary Clinton, people were at my door at the center crying. He's so mean. He's so angry. He's so whatever. And I'm like, something's got to be done here. It's not sustainable. And his behavior became more and more erratic. It became more unhinged. The systemic problem that we actually see is if he was somehow removed, left or whatever, would it all go back to normal? I don't know. You know, I was called out by someone the other day when I was on with Penny, and she really took umbrage to my point that I said that Trump basically orchestrated an assassination attempt. And when you say to me, like, oh, that's impossible, that's not something that he would do, I am here to say this is his inner circle. This is his inner circle. His inner circle has players that play the game, loyalties. And those of you that ever listen, I haven't really watched the WWE in a long time, but I used to watch the WWF. And the lessons that came out of that, what it really came down to was the idea that, you know what? What's your loyalty? Who's going to stand up for me in the ring? Who's going to go down with me? Who's going to fight for me? Who's going to guard the perimeter while I take care of business? You don't get the kind of photo op that he did. You don't do the type of stupid thing like stand up and fist pump if that's not planned. If you know you're not in safety range. They didn't know number of shooters. There's no way. There, on behalf of all of the special agents, on behalf of all of the Secret Service, the people, the men and women that have served, nobody worth their salt would have let him get up and do a fist pump right in front of the flag. Fuck that. They would have buried him. They would have dragged him off and said, sorry, Mr. President, you don't know what's good for you. But instead it turned into a photo op. If the photo op didn't happen, I'd say, wow, what an unfortunate thing. Thank goodness he's safe. Was the bullet real? It sure was. There's no angle where his ear would have been ripped clean off with the type of bullet that the man behind him got shot with. It was orchestrated, man. Sorry. And by the way, I have a friend of mine who had his ear. Remember that stupid shit we would do? By the way, I'm going to show you guys this. This ear right here used to have a Gumby earring in it. Gumby, damn it. 50th anniversary. We'll talk about it some other times at SNL. But this one right here, when you look closely, there's still a hole in my ear. A little finagling I could probably get Claire's earring in there. Those of you that got their 40th anniversary. My ear was purposely pierced and is not healed. His ear was almost blown off and it looks sculpted. Well, this argument that this woman made was pretty kind of like, I can't believe that you're being divisive. I can't believe that you're whatever. Basically, in a nutshell, she was disagreeing with me, but she was basically calling me divisive, thinking that would get me to shut up because she didn't agree with me. She also sent me an apology and then continued to go on to tell me how wrong I am. And she wasn't really apologizing. She was just wanted to keep talking about it. Hey, I'm sorry about that, but you're wrong, basically is what she wanted to say. So it wasn't really an apology. She doesn't really understand the definition of words anymore because we're so energetically manipulated that we don't even know what sorry means anymore. I mean, it's easy pickings for a smart guy like me. But when you have the media masses and people that are manipulated, they're going to be pushed into action. Kind of like America, the Beautiful comes on and then somebody boos and it's like, I'm gonna fight you. Cause America, you're gonna boo me, motherfucker. I'm gonna fuck you up is what I'm gonna do. Let me tell you something. I got two particles in my brain and I'm gonna rub them both together right on your ass. Canada, like I need you. You're a nice hat. That's all you is to me. Molson, I don't need to drink Molson. What kind of fruity drink is that? I only drink Budweiser. Oh, we're still mad about that? Okay. I don't drink Coors Light because the can turns blue. Just like red, white, and blue. If you want true nefariousness, go ahead and Google the words Confederate flag replaced government websites. And you will find a 9-starred flag on .gov websites that represent the Confederate flag on official government websites. And then you're going to say, oh, well, it's not the stars and bars. Oh, no. They know they'll be called out for that. Instead, they just use the 9 stars that were in the stars and bars. Right? Because ultimately, Charlottesville was just a couple of nice people that got out of hand. We have nice people on both sides. He literally tried to say that a hate group had nice people in it. And you could say, well, he's too stupid to know the difference. He just wanted voters. Maybe. But maybe he shouldn't be in charge. I'm done talking about it. He, by grift or by theft, he's the president. He's developing our downfall. Because the energy that he possesses is going to rip through this country and continue to do it. We just have to be smart enough to not be in the way. And by the way, that doesn't mean cover your ass. That means that someday somebody's going to come in, knock on your door, and demand to see all of the paperwork of the people that work there. There was a restaurant in Ann Arbor, Michigan that got raided. That restaurant had 3 people arrested, 2 of which were freed within 20 minutes. They were arrested because they were brown. Do you know why? That restaurant had their paperwork ready because they were doing it the right way. And they said, here's their yellow card, here's their green card. You can't detain them. I'm presenting it to you. Right? By the way, the taco truck in Memphis, Tennessee, and by the way, I know somebody that was there, saw the whole thing. They showed up. Plainclothes ICE officers showed up with masks on and demanded and took them out, took them under arrest and went there. And they were like, where are your papers? He goes, what are you talking about, papers? By the way, one of them was still awaiting for their hearing for their green card. Literally, it was on the docket, but they're ready to deport him because our process is too slow, but it's not fast enough for that ICE officer. One person was released because not only was he a U.S. citizen, he had never traveled outside of Tennessee before. Or do we go to the ICE raid? And in downtown Oklahoma City, ICE officers were just fucking harassing brown people and said, hey, we're going to deport you. And the man said, what? Oh, no, I'm a U.S. citizen. Oh, yeah, prove it. And he said, well, I have my tribal papers because I'm Navajo. Come to think of it, what the fuck are you doing here? This hate on hate crime is going to get out of control. We got to be prepared for it. In their blind rage and their zealousness, they're going to make mistakes all over the place. Like cut off aid to farmers. Like ban things that have no consequence one way or the other. The one thing about fights, about anger, is that the energy eventually goes away because it is unsustainable. Part of it is because they'll just run out of things to be mad at. And let me tell you something, they are a gasoline fire and that kindling is almost out of control. It's almost gone. Then they're going to start trying to burn one another because it's the only thing that they'll do to keep their fire going. And then at one point, they're going to start yelling at the rhinos and the Tea Partiers because they'll run out of DEI problems and reasons. And then they'll run out of people from the South and people from the East and people from the whatever division it is that they can do. And God forbid the Canadians and the Mexicans are just going to look at them and say, like, you guys want to trade with each other instead of them? We're going to have a destabilized mess when this is over. And that's why we have to start now with recognizing who we are, knowing that we have our own autonomy of self. That includes your spiritual sovereignty, what you believe in. And by the way, what you believe in also is what you believe in for a unity, a community, a country. Are you going to be able to stand up to the bullies when they show up and want to raid your place? Are you going to be able to stand up to the people that say, just do this for us, even though it's wrong? It serves a bigger picture. And if we don't get you, we'll get somebody else, and it'll be hell for you. I have somebody on my page that is a Vietnam veteran, and he served several tours in Vietnam. And when I was younger, he was very open about having no problem flying over and just taking out cities and towns. He was, he had struggles when he came back, and that's where I'll leave this. I know his history. I know his life, for lack of better terms. And he's so angry and thinking that there's revenge to be made. And I'm realizing that anybody that is supporting this right now is just dealing with their own traumas. Maybe we, the people on the other side of this, are the people that are reliving past lives, the traumas that we had. Maybe it was because we were around, we had a recent spiritual adventure in 1935. And we saw all the warning signs come out, and we're like, what are we doing? What are we seeing here? And our souls are tired. Our souls are tired. I believe in these protests. I think we need to send a message that these are the things that have to happen. But I'm hearing people in Congress and representatives roll over left and right because we say, well, we don't have the majority. We don't have the majority on paper. They were legally wrong and nobody put them away. We have to quit playing by the rules that we made. Because this isn't a hockey game. This is real life. And when the puck finally drops, their knuckles will be dragged so long that they won't be able to put it up to defend us or themselves. That's how you energetically win this. Let them drag their knuckles long enough that they can no longer lift their arms. Thank you guys for your patience. I think our video actually held up pretty well here. I think it was good. By the way, I hope to see you guys on Thursday night. I'm doing an online circle, tbrandonruss.com. Hope you sign up for Sandy's Crystal Classic. Ask her some questions. crystalsforthejourney@gmail.com. It's up in the link here. And listen, we're going to be okay. I know how this is going to go. And I know that there is raging irony going on right now. Raging. And it's so easy to point out, but you're arguing with people that aren't playing by the rules that we established or that they even established. They move the goalposts because they just need to be right because they're hurt. We live in a country where we don't get bereavement right. We don't treat our soldiers that defended our country well when they return. We allowed politicians to get along with grift and shit forever. And unless they admitted to it, they just never really got caught. Criminals walk into places now and just grab the tip jar and walk out. Because what are you going to do? Get them for $15? But that wasn't theirs. They stole energy. In each one of these cases, it's just taking energy. It's making commitments that you don't follow through on. It's hurtful. It hurts the soul. Forget about what it does to the bottom line. You guys do understand that our interest ratio is so high. We couldn't get a loan unless we were a country. Because you can tax your people. Their playbook is very simple. Eugenics. Claiming that they're solidifying waste and now they have to pay it back. Your taxes go up. Well, the tax bill that he just represented gives over $4 billion in tax cut with anybody with a net worth over $70 million. That ain't you. But you want to hear something that's scary? If you make over $32,000 or are in a household with the net revenue of over $50,000, $52,000, you are in the top 1% richest people in the world. And that's where this war is. So become sovereign. Understand who you are. Because when they come knocking, you better get it right for yourself. It's only a matter of time before he gets to each and every one of us. Because that's the goal. Be so intrusive that you either succumb and give up or you pay the consequences. No matter how small the infraction, the book will be thrown at you. Who are you? When do we get upset enough to be like, that's a little overkill? Your Honor, I was doing 31 and a 30. We have standards, we have norms. 60 days in the hole in a $2,000 fine. Because that's what's on paper when you look at the ridiculousness. We could do it. We just choose not to because rational thought. But we could. And guess what? We're gonna. Fear. They're going to run out of energy and they're going to eat one another. We're going to be okay. I'm going to give you guys a heart taps. Remind you to love and care for one another. Do something good for somebody tomorrow. That's your homework. I'll see you a little later on in the week. In the meantime, keep going. Thanks, guys, for hanging in there. Thanks for all the words of support. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care, guys. You guys are the best. Love you guys too. Take care. Rock stars.